Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the first of many education listening town halls that I will be holding as long as I am a member of the Rockdale County Board of Education. Right now, I'm a board member elect. I will be taking office in January. But one of the things that I promised you, the citizens of Rockdale County, that if elected, I would institute a town hall listening format for you to be able to come and voice your opinion and for you to be able to find out information about the Rockdale County school system. And like I said, if you make a promise, you need to keep that promise to your constituents. You need to keep that promise to the people who voted for you, because they voted for you for a reason. They voted for you because you told them you were going to do something. And if you're going to, if then something alters in that and you're not going to move on something and you're asked about it, then you need to also answer that question. You need to be transparent. That's what these meetings are going to be about. They're going to be about transparency. So, and what I intend to do is I intend to have a town hall now. I intend to have a town hall in November. Then I intend to have, after the first of the year, once I am sworn in on the board, I will have a town hall once every quarter, and it'll be the second month of each quarter. So, and then at that point, I will invite other board members to join me at the town hall if they would wish to. Now, it would only be up to 2 more board members, because we can't have more than 3 of us at a forum like that at any time, because it would be considered a quorum, and it would be a violation of the Sunshine Law. But I would like to have at least a couple other members join me at the education listening town halls, so they would be able to get input from you, the stakeholders, the parents, the guardians, educators, whoever would want to come and participate in the listening town hall. I do want to thank Justin Kenny for coming here this evening. He wanted to come and listen. This meeting, I thank Justin for coming, but until next year when we implement the new policy of inviting board members, anyone who comes, a board member who comes in this time or in November, they'll just be a guest just like you until I get installed on the board and we start that policy for how we're going to do that. And I do appreciate you guys allowing me that grace. So let's kick this off and let's start with you. What comment or what question would any of you have regarding the state of education or a concern with education in Rockdale County? And I do believe we have a mic that will be available that we could put up front up here. So if someone does have a comment, you can use the mic, and that way the rest of the people in the audience can hear you. And then also, this meeting is being videotaped, and it will be uploaded and put on YouTube and Facebook and other sites later on. And if you speak into the mic, then you'll be able to be heard on these broadcasts, and people will be able to hear a two-way conversation. So someone who has a question, if you could come, get the mic and ask your question. Don't be bashful.
Well, I do have a question. I guess I have 2 comments, and one of them is I've been in this county since 2004. One of the earlier memories I have of going to meetings was about this, the school system at that time, and there were a group of people from AARP that were at this function, and what they wanted to say was that as seniors, they did support our kids in our community and wanted, so I just wanted to say that because in the past I've heard the comments about not wanting to overtax our seniors, which of course I do feel that pain, but I also want to say that I believe most seniors do want to support our schools. My husband was a teacher, and and so maybe a little bit of his passion is rubbing off on me there, but that does lead me to a second comment, and that's that one of his, he did not teach in this county. He taught in Tift County for a while and Statesboro County for a while, and he was also, part of his life was military, so this was a later in life thing he did in large part because he had a passion for teaching kids. His ongoing request was that the school administration would back him up on when a problem student needed to be removed from the room, so that the kids that were there and that were trying to learn didn't have the distraction of that problem student. And so I don't know what's happening currently in the schools, but I just wanted to, when we're talking about administration and staffing, et cetera, do we have the backup staff that can help when there are problem students and not leave all that burden onto the teachers? So
That, excuse me, that is one of the main concerns that I have heard from educators in Rockdale County, that they don't feel that they have received proper backup or support when it comes to disciplining children or children who are having emotional difficulties being removed from classrooms. And I think that it is something that, as the board and the superintendent, that it needs to be addressed openly and have honest conversations about. And as we look in the room today, there's people here, right? And I know a lot of people who wanted to come tonight, and a lot of people who wanted to come tonight were educators. And just going to be honest about something, right? Those educators were fearful to come tonight because they were fearful that there would be actions taken against them for speaking about their concerns in the Rockdale County school system. And what I was, and I've spoken to some people about that, and some of the folks have told me, well, those are just the conditions that you have in school systems. People are always afraid of losing their job. And can I tell you something? If that's a culture that we've created, it's a culture that needs to be changed.
Amen.
Because that is not a culture that will breed an environment where education can flourish. If you have an educator that is continuously afraid that they're going to lose their job because they have concerns or voice concerns, I intend as a board member to have these conversations on the board. I intend to have these conversations in board comment, because if we can't be open and transparent, then we're in trouble. And what message are we sending to our children if we can't be open and transparent? I was at an organization that I belonged to yesterday, and they had an after-school event with a group of kids, and they talked about the school tragedy that happened up at Appalachia last week, and just how kids were feeling and their emotional state. And what I heard bothered me, but probably didn't shock me. That the children, and there were a lot of children at this after-school event, and the consensus of these children were that they didn't feel that they were really cared about from the administration or the system. They felt that they were just there, and they were concerned about what they were observing, and they didn't think that sometimes they were an afterthought. And that's concerning, when especially when you'll hear from school boards across America, not only Rockdale County, we do the things we do because it's for the children. But yet the children in the school system don't feel that we're doing things on their behalf. So it is concerning. And I'll go back to your first comment about the taxes. I have heard from many senior citizens, and I know people who have actually in fear of losing their homes because they are on limited incomes and they really can't afford those taxes. I don't believe that we're in a position in Rockdale County to put a uniform exemption across just based on age. I think it would have to be a means-tested exemption for something like that. It would have to be for individuals who could not afford to pay the taxes, or they would be losing their homes. And there are people in Rockdale County who would meet that criteria. Because you have to look, Rockdale County was just approved to receive free lunches for all of the children in Rockdale County. And part of the criteria for receiving that grant was the fact that we are in a high poverty area. So we have already been identified as an area of high poverty. So if you're an area of high poverty, you really need to be careful about how you're taxing citizens, and certain citizens who are vulnerable, like senior citizens. Now, the school system needs X amount of dollars to function and for us to provide an education. And that's the purpose of the school board. So I would never do anything to jeopardize providing a quality education to the students of Rockdale County. But I will never make a statement that I did something that hurt you because it helped the student, because that's a statement that's ridiculous. Because students do not house themselves, they do not feed themselves, and they do not clothe themselves. They are totally reliant on a parent, guardian, grandparent, an adult in some manner to provide all of that. If I financially punish or harm the individual that's taking care of that child, then indirectly I have harmed that child. So we've got to be very careful about what we say and how we say it. So that's how I'll answer those two comments and those two concerns that you have. And thank you for bringing those concerns forward tonight. Now, would anybody else have a concern they would like to actually just mention? And if you want me to address, I'll address. But if it's just a comment you want to make, this is the perfect opportunity for you to make comment, and you don't have to hear me respond back. It's up to you if you want a response, because this is your town hall. This is an education listening town hall. I'm here to listen to you and take your words to me, to that board, and represent everyone. So what do we have next? Mike, over here to Ms. Turner.
Okay, my concern is the makeup of the school board members and the superintendent. It seems like there's some misguided responsibility as far as what the school board is responsible for and what the superintendent is responsible for. I have reviewed the school boards and the superintendent, and in what I'm understanding, you correct me if I'm wrong, but I would like you to break it down for other citizens. The school board members, the elected officials, are there to for policies and procedures, and the superintendent, and also to work with the budget. The superintendent seems to, I went to a call meeting maybe last year where the superintendent went over the budget. Several other administrators were there, but it seemed like it was something that the superintendent and I guess the financial officer had put together and the school board had no input. Can you explain to us what each one's role is?
The school board has three basic functions, and that is to pass policy, to pass a budget, and to pass the curriculum, which are the three fundamental processes of the school system. The function of the superintendent is to run the day-to-day operation of the school system and to not be interfered with by the board. And that's where there's this really tricky of balance of power and how you manage that. It's the superintendent has the day-to-day operational power, but the school board has the authority to pass the policies under the advisement of the superintendent and his staff. The school board has the responsibility of passing the budget under the advisement of the superintendent and his staff. The school board has the responsibility of passing the curriculum under the advisement of the superintendent and his staff. And there's some important things that I just said there, that the school board has the responsibility to pass that under advisement and recommendation. At the end of the day, the school board, the members of that board are the ones ultimately responsible for the policies that they pass, the budget that they pass, and the curriculum that is taught in the school system. They're the ones that are ultimately the ones that are holding the bag. The way the school system, the educational system is designed now, you have organizations like the GSBA that will tell school board members that you have to defer everything to the superintendent, that that's the expert, that that's the person that you have to listen to. Well, the GSBA is nothing more than in my opinion, a lobbyist organization that helped change the legislation in 2010 that allowed the superintendent to become a super bureaucrat. And that's my personal opinion, right? But they did not, in that legislation, take the authority away from the school board. It's the school boards are manipulating to believing they don't have authority. The legislation doesn't say the school board must rubber stamp policy, the school board must rubber stamp a budget, or the school board must rubber stamp curriculum. It says the school board must pass those things. And as a member of the board, I will not rubber stamp one single thing. I will require that I've given information and given knowledge. Right now, members of the board do not serve on a small committee that actually really sets the budget. They are just given information about what the budget is going to look like a few weeks before they're supposed to actually pass the budget. There is no way, as extensive as that budget is, that board can actually pass that budget knowing what it really entails or what it means. When it's $221 million, and you're expected to be able to go through that and really know what's happening in a couple of week time frame, not possible. That's why the board has to have representation on that small committee when they're putting that together to be able to have input. The board needs to have input, and the board can have input, because at the end of the day, if the board doesn't pass the budget, then it doesn't exist. The board has to pass the budget. So what I think we have is we have had a system that has allowed bureaucrats to sideline elected officials. And then they'll come up with the thing, you're not allowed to go to the schools if you're a board member, you're not allowed to do this. They initially said you can't have town halls. I did open records requests to the State Board of Education and to the County Board of Education. Guess what? You can have town halls. I'm standing here right now having a town hall as a board member elect, but I will have town halls as a board member, because you, the citizens, deserve that. You deserve to have a forum to be able to come and speak your mind and have someone answer your questions honestly, is what I will do. And I will make sure that I conform to the ethics code that the board members are required to adhere to. I will adhere to that. I'll adhere to all the rules. But not only do I intend to adhere to the rules, I expect the superintendent and his staff to also adhere to policy. And there will be policy changes made by this new board. And I expect the superintendent, his staff, and the remainder of the board to respect the changes that will be made and adhere to those, and when they're cited the same ethics code that they cited to other people, don't bow up and say it's not fair, because those are the rules of engagement. Those are the rules, those are the policies, and elections have consequences, and it's time for consequences to take action. Anything else? Somebody else have
I
another
just
comment?
want to say that there's evidence, in my opinion, that the school board members are not involved in the budget anytime they're going over the budget. And they, in this meeting, many of the members was asking about the parapros and they were gonna do, what was it called, RI something, where they were gonna get rid of some, and they were asking questions.
Well,
So that lets me know they have no involvement because they don't know what's going on in the budget.
well, and I admit, I mentioned that, of course, they don't. They're given this large document a couple of weeks before they're supposed to pass it, and they weren't involved in processing that budget. You're 100% correct.
I'm just real adamant about, if you have a role, for you to perform that role and not try to be in different, other areas.
We have the ability, state law says this. State law says that a budget shall be passed by June 30th. And it says the budget process is a local process. And that process will be established by the local board. That's what it says. That's the law. It's right in Georgia Code, Code 20. It's right in the code. And so that means that the Rockdale County School Board is given the authority to pass whatever policy that is within that law to set the budget and how the budget is set by. If the Rockdale County School Board sets a policy to where members of that board sit on that small committee, and I'll tell you, before the present superintendent took that position, board members sat on that small board. And I know that, and I've talked to board members who have sat on that board. But after this superintendent took office, policies were changed. Now, those policies weren't changed by the superintendent. They were recommended changes by the superintendent. But a majority of the current board went along with those policy changes, changed those policies, and they were no longer on that small board that initially did those budgets. And that's reality. That's the world that we live in, and that's what happened.
Can you say more about the policies that you're saying they're gonna change? You said they're gonna be new policies.
There will be policies, and they have to be evaluated. They have to be evaluated.
Can you
One of the
speak
policies,
to those you just
I
spoke?
I can speak to one policy in particular, and that's the budget policy. The budget policy needs to be changed that where board members will sit on that small committee that meets to actually determine how funds are appropriated. Because right now, no board member sits on that, and they don't find out about these things till later on. That's a major thing, the funding. Also, I believe one of the other things that needs to be a policy is actually one of the domains of the school board is to actually, they hire the superintendent, and they have to make sure the superintendent is doing his or her job. So the school board members need to be able to go to schools. They need to be able to have access to things to determine if the superintendent's actually doing his job. Probably not the best idea that the superintendent gets to turn in a grade card for himself that the school board members then look at to judge him on. And that's the system we have in place right now. He gets to turn in his own grade card that you have to judge him on. And can't make that kind of nonsense up. It's real. So what I propose is this. I propose that school board members visit schools, they visit facilities, they have more access to documentation, they observe. They observe, they do not interfere with the day-to-day operation. My presence in no manner should be interpreted as me interfering in the day-to-day operation. If you are afraid of me just being present and observing, then what are you doing that you don't want me to see? My presence alone should in no manner be interpreted as being interruptive to the day-to-day operation. I run a construction company. We have construction projects all over the southeast United States. My project managers and superintendents report to me that this is what's going on, that's what's going on. To verify this is what's going on, that what's going on, myself, an operations manager, or another person in higher management will go and we will observe these projects. We will observe the individuals running the projects to verify that what the information we're being given is factual. Because I can't let these individuals grade themselves because they don't look at it objectively. They look at it from their prism. So you must look at these things objectively. Those are two things that I think are imperative. The budget and actually the observation of how policies, the budget, and the curriculum are being actually followed through, how these things are being followed through in the school system. And the board doesn't really know now because they're given reports, but they don't see firsthand. If you don't see firsthand, you don't really know that information's accurate. Those are two policies in particular that I would recommend change, and will actually recommend change myself on the board level.
Do you know the historical context of why that might be a policy that's in place?
Policies,
Was this practice 30 years old? Is it 50 years old? Is it 10 years old?
I know these practices evolve, and they've evolved especially since 2010 when the legislation was changed to enhance the power of the superintendents. So I would say prior to 2010, you had more board interaction and more board involvement. And then once some legislation was passed to actually strengthen the superintendent's position and lessen the position of the board, those things probably started occurring at that time period. And I do understand during that time period what happened. You had some rogue boards around the state that caused some friction and some things went on. And so the legislature felt they had to take action and pass some legislation. I do understand that. But that's why I firmly believe that you must adhere to the policies. Everyone must adhere to the policies. And that's why there's checks and balances on both sides.
I just want to share what Larry is referring to. It is 2010 Georgia Code Title 20 Education Chapter 2 Elementary and Secondary Education, Article 3 Local Boards of Education 20-2-61 Fundamental Roles of Boards of Education in Local Schools Superintendents, OCGA 20-2-61. That is, you can just look up the school board responsibilities and you'll get this code.
Thank you, Horace.
So if that's a state code, then how do you expect to change that on the local level?
No, the state code allows you to do that. The state code allows you to do that. The code is being misinterpreted by the Georgia School Board Association, and they tell you can't do things, and people, just like I was told, you can't have a town hall. I asked open records request. You can have town halls. I overheard school board members at a political function I was at in March, tell constituents that it was against the law for them to visit schools. They were told by the superintendent it was against the law. I did open records request. I actually looked the law up too, but I did open records request. It is not against the law for school board members to visit the school. Georgia, the norm which they operate by in Rockdale, they don't operate by a policy, but a board norm states that you must notify the superintendent if you intend to visit the school. And I have done just that. I actually, this 2 weeks ago, asked the superintendent to be allowed to have tours of the schools so that I could familiarize myself with them, because I've not been to all the facilities. And before I take office, I want to start that, and I want to make sure that's done by the end of February. So I did request that of the superintendent, that I be allowed to visit the schools to familiarize myself with them, since I would be sitting on the board and having oversight. And he's granted me that wish, and those visits have started to be scheduled here in a few weeks. And I will be visiting the schools and getting orientated with them so that I can become familiar with the facilities that I will be having oversight over as one of the board members. And another thing, not one board member has singular authority. It is the board as a whole which has the authority. So there are 7 members of the board. So it will take 4 members of the board agreeing on anything before that policy or that change is made. So we have a sound process if followed. 4 members must agree out of 7. And you guys know it's hard to get 4 people to agree on anything nowadays, right? So I think that's a pretty good checks and balances. Who's next and what do we have? Come on, don't be shy.
And can I share some more with
You can share some more, Corliss.
Okay, it says the fundamental role of a local board of education shall be to establish policy for the local school system with the focus on student achievement. The fundamental role of the local school superintendent shall be to implement the policy established by the local board. It shall not be the role of the local board of education or individual members of such board to micromanage the superintendent in executing his or her duties, but it shall be the duty of the local board to hold the local school superintendent accountable.
And that goes right back to where I said, if the school board members don't go into the school system and don't observe, how can you make sure that the policies and the procedures, the curriculum, and the budget that they passed is being adhered to? You can't. You've heard the old saying, you'll let the fox guard the hen house. And that's exactly what you cannot let individuals self-evaluate. You cannot have a policy in place where you have self-evaluation. You have to keep yourself on. I would never allow a policy where I self-evaluate myself because I look at myself differently than others would look at me. I would think I might think I'm doing a great job, and in reality, maybe I'm doing an iffy job. But I'm not going to evaluate myself as I'm doing an iffy job, especially if I have a raise and a bonus online, right? Who's going to do that? Nobody. I mean, you would be a complete idiot to not, enhance yourself if you thought you could get a raise or a bonus. And I don't hold anybody, blame for that. But if you pass a policy that allows it, shame on you. Shame on you. That's what I got to say about that. Anything else? Go ahead, George.
I have
Let George, and we'll come back to you after Mr. Kelichek.
Larry, regarding observation, I'd have to be in 100% agreement with you. Looking at observations, and we're in a place of worship, you can say hell, damn, or ass because it's in the Bible. When I went through the schools, middle schools and high schools, during February and March of this year, and I have pictures, I've taken them to the superintendent. At one of the high schools, we had 3 gentlemen with their pants below their ass. That is direct violation of the parent-student handbook. I asked the RSO officers at that moment and the teacher that was present, what are you going to do? Well, nothing. We'll figure something out. Well, when you have a direct violation of a parent-student handbook and males walking around with their pants showing their ass, we have a serious discipline problem in this school district. You may see those same observations when you go there. I will be recommending at the next Board of Education meeting that every board member tour at least one school per quarter, but then provide a report back to the citizens at a Board of Education meeting what those observations were. Secondly, curriculum. I've gone into several schools. We have curriculum sitting on shelves that has been paid for by the taxpayers, but hasn't been utilized because the teachers were not instructed on how to teach that curriculum. Shelves upon shelves upon shelves of curriculum. I'll be getting with the director of curriculum and show her and him these pictures. But when you take your tours, ask to go to the storage rooms. You're going to see a lot of waste. Next, in the parent-student handbook, and this is a state policy, you know you only have to have a D average, to participate in extracurricular activities or sports. So that is telling the student, well, you can fail. You can be below average and still have extracurricular activities and participate in sports. What kind of message are we sending there? I understand it's a state item, but it is specifically in the parent-student handbook. Also, I saw females, and I have pictures, bare midriffs, pierced belly buttons. Again, direct violation of the parent-student handbook. So just want to let that be out there. You may see these same things that I did, but I think it's an excellent strategy to go to these schools and see firsthand. On the other side, regarding the budget, I believe every director of each department within the school system should, on a quarterly basis, come in front of the board and tell how they're doing versus their budget. I mean, almost every company that I've ever noticed on the private sector gives a quarterly report. So just some of my comments and pieces of information.
Thank you, George, and she had another comment.
It is a question, is within the administration structure, who addresses things like when a new school is there's a new school on Zingara Road, I've forgotten the name of it, something Hauser, I believe, Jason. And it just seems like an odd situation that school was basically, early on, I remember reading it was going to be on Highway 20, just down from where the Pines, or I've forgotten what the other school was, but in any case, so I think that everybody that lived in that general area assumed it would be, the buses and everything there would be an exit allowing them to use Georgia 20, but there's not. They send the buses down stretches in Gara between Hightower and High Rock, which is really a road in bad shape, and a fair number of the homes are right up close to the road because it's just an old country road, and yet they're sending this stream of buses on Zingara instead of making use of Georgia 20, which is right on the other side of the road. I don't know if you're familiar with the roads are, but who makes those decisions? I mean, there was no consideration of the people in the neighborhood, and there was actually bad information put out, at least early on, about how it was going to be done.
Well, I'm not on the board, wasn't privileged for that process, but my thought process is you've got a transportation director, and the transportation director would probably come up with a study of the best routes and such, and that would be presented to the superintendent and his cabinet, and then that would be presented to the school board. But I would say that duty of developing routes would go to the transportation department, which is within the school system, and then it would flow uphill from there. But ultimately, any policies or procedures or anything that is adhered to must be passed by the board. Everything has to be presented to the board, and ultimately the board approve it. So final approval of everything goes to the board. But you do have those day-to-day operations, which would be a transportation director would be the first, person looking at this and seeing what the logistics of that would be. A transportation director and operations director. Any additional questions, comments? Go ahead, Dan.
Do you want to speak on the school's capacity to handle some of this new construction going on or proposed? Do you have any idea on how those schools would handle this if they were allowed?
That's sort of a double-edged sword, right? Was when you look at capacity, the capacity is there because we've lost over 2,000 students the last few years. But then when you look at, could the school system handle an influx of 2,000 more students right now? And I would have to say no, because you don't have the teaching staff. And from my understanding right now, we have a teacher deficiency in the county, and we rely heavily on substitute teachers to fill classrooms on a daily basis. So right now, Dan, if we had to bring in, let's just say we had 1,000 student influx at one time, we would face severe budgetary shortfall. We would face a severe teaching shortage, a staffing shortage for that. So the answer would be two. Do we have the room in the schools? The physical room, yes. Do we have the budgetary capacity? I would say no. That's the short answer to that right now. Yes and no. And that's from the outside, right? I'm not on the board. That's purely just me looking at the budget that I see, the decisions that I see, the things I see from the outside. But I have a really good feeling that what I told you is probably reality. And one of the other things that I think we hear a lot is we hear that the board needs to defer to the expert, and they're referring to the superintendent. Don't get me wrong, I do consider the superintendent an expert. Anyone's a superintendent is an expert because that's why they were hired. But there are also 1,000 other experts in Rockdale County school system. They're called teachers. So we have to rely on the advice, the experience, and the wisdom of those individuals that are in the classroom to let us know what is needed on a day-to-day basis to educate these students and what the needs are in the classroom. So I think we really need to go back to basics a little bit and determine what's needed in the classroom. And to truly determine that, we need to involve educators more and find out their opinion and their likes and dislikes. But again, like I started the meeting with, these educators have to, again, not be afraid they're going to lose their jobs if they speak up about concerns. So there's where, we have got to create an environment, an atmosphere, a culture in the Rockdale County school system that lets the students know they're cared about, they're protected. Let the faculty, the teachers know they're cared about and they're protected. It's all about developing a culture, a culture that everyone knows they matter. And right now, from what I hear on a daily basis, is that students don't think they matter and teachers don't think they matter. And that's the reality that I hear on a daily basis, folks. And that's what needs to be looked at. And it's things that I intend to look at as a board member. And someone mentioned about the board having discussions and this and that. There is a time during the board meeting, it's called board comment. And I've yet to hear board comment used. I intend to use board comment quite frequently once I'm on the board to address issues. I actually intend to use board comment to actually bring up the issues that happen in these town halls. because the ethics policy says I'm required to actually inform the board and the superintendent of concerns of the citizens of this county about the school system. So what better place to inform the board and the superintendent of these concerns at an open forum board meeting so everybody can know what the concerns of the citizens and the students are. So, I mean, just, one of the other things I would like to do and intend to implement as a sitting board member. Anything else? Yes.
I have a question. It's been I've been noodling this for the last few days and kind of thought that this would be a good time to ask. I know that the school system as a whole, and I'm gonna shift gears a little bit and go back kind of to the students. I know the school system has been shifting gears as far as cell phones. And they used to be able to have the cell phones on them, had to be off, but now they're going to where it has to be in a pouch. I guess if the teachers keep it on the door, or they have to turn it in when they come in the classroom, if I'm understanding that properly. My question is in light of what happened in Appalachia, can you imagine a teacher having to go through an active shooter drill, a real shooter situation? She's having to do all what she has to do, barricade the doors, get the kids in the back, and the kids don't have access to the cell phones. Now I want you to think about it, you as a parent. And the only reason I bring that up is I live adjacent to Edwards Middle School. So you probably all heard what happened at Edwards Middle School today. And if you haven't, it's gonna probably be on the news. An employee made threats, left, came back with a weapon, school's on shutdown. And when I went by the school earlier today, now you had cars with parents parked all on the side of the roads. Dr. Oates was in a parking lot adjacent speaking to everybody. But can you imagine the people not having access to know what's going on with the kids? Because one of the things should not be on the teacher's her thing she has to do in the middle of trying to secure her classroom is passing out some damn cell phones. Now, I want y'all to think about, for all you people who are kids are grown and gone, I want you to think about back when your kids were at home and even those cell phones. We're on September 11th, and we know that that plane that crashed in Pennsylvania, people called their loved ones. Imagine, is there something that they can revisit in light of what's happening? And this is a reality. This is the reality of what's going on. And that's the only reason I brought it up, because that's too much for a teacher to have to deal with, first of all. Second of all, maybe a suggestion for not only the teachers training with active shooter drills, but going back to the kids. The kids need to have situational awareness. I was squadron commander at Civil Air Patrol, U.S. Air Force Auxiliary. I'm still with them. My wife is actually squadron commander, and I tell my cadets every week, have your head on a swivel, understand what's going on with your fellow kids, because I watched the interview of the young lady at Appalachia who was a classmate of the shooter. When the shooter came to her door, she walked up to the door and was about to open it. She saw her classmate. She looked down, saw the bag. She said, I was smart enough to look down. He had the bag, and she said, as I looked down and went to open the door, I saw him pull out the long rifle. She stepped back. So what did he do? He went to the classroom right across the hall where her sister was and opened fire on them. That situational awareness of that young lady, if she had opened that door and just said, oh, that's my classmate, because he was in her class. So you just think, oh, okay, he's at the door. The person who was arrested at Edwards was a janitor. So you're familiar faces. So this is the reality. So I've been kind of just thinking about that, because those parents that are sitting outside Edwards Middle School, not knowing what the hell's going on with their kids, because the kids don't have access to the cell phones.
Well, let's, I do not know the exact policy about that. I know it's something that the board has looked at, but I think that right now that's an individual school policy.
Well, I know that my son graduated in 2023, and whatever it is, I know that there, because I know that a lot of school systems are going to that.
A lot of school
A
systems
lot
are
of
going
systems,
to.
and I know that there's schools here that are doing that. You turn in your phones at the, it's a county policy, you go turn in, now whether the schools are implementing this school to
I
school.
think you have, that's what you got going on.
When you go visit, and you see the cell phones in a bag at the door,
I think there are pros and cons
Yeah.
to the phone thing.
Yeah.
I have a good friend of mine, and his daughter attended Appalachian.
mhm.
She attends it now, and actually I was talking to him that morning, and he was getting texts from his daughter. I've known this guy for 20-some years. He's a vendor of mine, and, you know, we were talking, and I was doing some business. I said, let's not worry about business, you worry about that. So, you know, he called me back later on, and this is what he told me. He said, I had to actually tell her to put that cell phone away afterwards. He said, and quit it. He said, because they were putting out so much misinformation that it was being more harmful than helpful. So there are many things to look at this, right?
Well, I think the foreign parents, they just want to know.
I know they wanna
that
know.
Because my son went through, when my son was at Heritage, and there were some incidents going on, immediately what I'm doing is, hey, son, are you okay? Not necessarily what's happened, are you all right?
I get that,
So
right?
I'm just saying, it might not be a right or wrong, but something to maybe noodle and think about.
I think
Is there a happy medium?
I think you're right. It's something you look at.
Yes.
And I think there are pros and cons to
Correct.
all of it. And then I think you have to evaluate it per school system and see what works in each community. I do not personally have an idea about it right now because I've not done it. I'm a person that likes to do a lot of research. I like to do a lot of study on something. My initial thought process would be I wouldn't want kids to be distracted during the learning process with phones. That's my initial thought process, right? But I think
I want them distracted. If there was an active shooter, I would want them to be following the teacher's instructions, or if they need to hide or whatever. I would want them to be focused on what they need to do in that moment, not on the phone
I-
trying to call.
And I think that's what we need to look at the big picture, to see what the big picture is, and as a board needs to make a decision once they get all the information.
It's a
And-
lot of layers.
And, well, but it wouldn't just be, the board would have to have a hearing, meetings. Public would be able to come, they would be able to give their thoughts on it. The board has meetings every week, twice a month, second and third Thursdays every month. Everyone's invited to come give open comment. You're allowed to come to the board and discuss anything you want to. So if this is something that's near and dear to you, you can come to the board and let the board know your opinion. Because it's public knowledge, it will be public information, it will be put into the record at that point what your opinion is about it. And that's the only way your board or elected officials know is you let us know. And meetings like this, town halls, where the next town hall, you decide to bring 3 or 4 people with you, right? And we have even more people start coming and letting us know what their opinion is, just like your opinion about this. Let's see how many people in this community feel that way. And I've talked to board members, and they have concerns about restricting the phones because of those very reasons. They're concerned about what they do as far as impacting the ability of children to learn, but they're also concerned about the situations you're talked about and those kids not having phones. So, I've talked to board members and they're conflicted with this also because it's not a cut and dry issue. It's a very complicated issue that's going to take a lot of discussion, just a lot of thought, because there are members of the board who have kids in school now, who have had kids in school, and they all have the same concerns you have. So be assured that would not be a decision that the board would make in haste or lightly. They would take all things under consideration, especially knowing that the type of circumstance you're talking about when it happens, the magnitude of that issue.
And I was just saying about the reason why I was just saying is that, and I told her, there's so many layers to it, but that's why I was saying for us as parents, whether you kids have been going for it, but take it to a human level. When a hurricane goes through here or something like that, you're getting calls from relatives. Hey, how you doing? If we hear about something going on in our relatives somewhere, what's the first thing we do? Call them. And can you imagine if you call them and you're not getting an answer? So that's what I'm just.
Today's 9/11, right?
Yes.
That's why I brought up
So,
that about the
so
flag.
9/11.
Yeah.
So 9/11, I was in Washington DC. I was working on projects. I had projects at Dulles International and I had projects at the Pentagon. The day before 9/11, I was working at the Pentagon. The day of 9/11, I was working at Dulles International. My family didn't know which projects I was working on. And on that day, when they tried to call me on the cell phone, if any of you were around or had cell phones at the time, in the metropolitan, that area, cell phones didn't work because they were so overloaded. They didn't come back online until the next day. Your cell phone did not work. So I get it, because I was in an area where the Pentagon was, a plane flew into. The day before, I had worked at the Pentagon, and the next week I was back at the Pentagon working. I was on taxiway K at Dulles International working, and all of a sudden we look around and airplanes are just turning around in the middle of the runways and taxiways and heading back to the gates. And then someone said, "What happened?" So we knew that. But the cell phones weren't working. I get your concern, right? I do. And it's something that I would definitely take under advisement. Yes, ma'am.
I just want to piggyback on that, because I do understand, I could call out, it's okay.
Yeah, but
I
we
do
want to hear the
understand.
recordings, please.
I do understand that they don't want the phones, because it may distract the kids. I was one of the grandparents, actually, on my way to Edwards today, could not get in touch with my grandson, and pulling up to a scene like that, I had no idea if anything was wrong with him. So, yeah, people can say the cell phone, but until you're actually in that position and your heart is gone because you don't know what happened, that's a whole nother issue. I pulled up police everywhere. I can't talk to my grandson. I don't know what's going on. So it is a different situation when you put into that position. Yeah, I can say, okay, he don't need a cell phone. But when something active is happening, you want to be able to know that they're okay. Because I'm texting, are you okay? I don't get a response. So I'm in Stockbridge, but I'm coming to see what's going on. When I pull up, the scene looked crazy. Automatically, I just knew something bad happened. So, yes, and then there again, I mean, I know that they do have, some schools send the kids through the metal detector, but hey, this wasn't a kid. So what happens on that issue? Do they just walk in without going, or are the kids the only ones being? That's the problem.
I understand. I get you. Miss Davis. Miss Davis.
So not to belabor the point too much, but I will say I do not believe that student cell phones should not be on them. I also don't believe that students should have their cell phones and should be distracted. If it's in the policy, if it's in the handbook, and this is about culture, this is about following what's in the policy. If it's in the handbook that you put your phone up when you go into the class, then put it up. And those kids that don't do it, what is the culture? The culture is that you are disciplined or you're spoken to when you're not following. The culture is not you come into this classroom, you come into the school, you come into the school system and do whatever you want. If that's what you want, then Rockdale is not for you. If you want to come and run and do whatever you want to do, go find a school system that allows you to do that. So what is the culture that we are changing such that we have high expectations? So when the teacher says, all right, everyone, let's put up your phones, you put them up. And I'm saying this from experience. Most of y'all know I used to be a 5th grade teacher in APS. Most of y'all know I worked at Georgia State and I ran the early college program. So I had 11th and 12th graders from 8 different schools come to Georgia State, where you can have anything you want at Georgia State. But when I had my weekly touch-ins with my students, I said, put your phones up. And that was that. And then I said, if I had something, we had a PowerPoint, I had a QR code, I'll say, take out your phones. Click on the QR code, and I'll give them time to do what they need to do on their phones. And they always knew, if you listen to Dr. Davis, she was gonna give you time at the end of the day, at the end of the meeting, to maybe get on your phones to do something. But I didn't have to run to the president of the university. I didn't have to go to the high schools and say, oh, they're coming here without their phones. I mean, the culture was, if you're gonna be at Georgia State early college, you're gonna do what we ask you to do, or you go back to the high school. So here, what is the culture that we're gonna have here? You step into the school building, you should have read the policy. This is for the parents also. You should have read the policy, you should have signed the policy, and you know you're gonna do what we ask you to do. Otherwise, go find somewhere else.
Ms. Davis, I actually, thank you. I agree with you. It comes down to, if you have a policy, you're not supposed to have it out during educational time, then it needs to be put up. If the instructor says you can take it out, you can take it out. You're right, it comes down to culture and following direction. There's no reason we shouldn't be able to have both. But it comes down to this, right? Is the administration and the superintendent going to back the teachers up enforcing the policy? That's what it comes down to, right? And that's when you have to have a strong school board who will make policy be adhered to. So I want to thank you for bringing that point up, because I have mentioned up here today several times that policy needs to be changed, policy needs to be passed, and policy needs to be followed by both sides. Policy needs to be followed by the school board, and it needs to be followed by the superintendent and his staff. And that is the key to success, that everybody is on one accord, that we are on the same page. And if we can't be on the same page, then we can't be on the same team. As simple as that. You had a statement. You have a statement? Not now?
Actually, that was me.
That was you.
Quick question, comment, referring back to what she just said. The teachers have no power. Power has been taken away from the teachers, all the way from, when we talk about the school board, we talk about school and transportation. I'm gonna throw that in there. So the drivers don't have control of the bus because the power has been taken away from the drivers, power taken away from the teachers. How are we gonna get that back?
We do that through policy. Man, this thing went crazy on me. We do this through policy. Like I said, everyone has to, if you would give that back to Sherry, we have to adhere to policy, and no one is above policy. If the policy the board passed, if
Where is
it's,
these policies?
Huh?
Are they in the school, at the principal's office?
the policies will be, the school board will pass the policies, and then the schools themselves have policies. And these policies, you as a taxpayer, as a citizen of Rockdale County, have the right to ask to see these policies. If there's a certain thing you want to know, does the school system have a policy about cell phones? All you have to do is you go to you contact the school's district, and you ask them, would you please provide me that policy? They have to provide you that policy because that's state law. State law says that they have, it's called the Sunshine Act. They have to provide you with that information. It is mandatory they provide you. Sherry.
Good evening. My name is Sherry Thomas, and I am a retired educator from Henry County. I put in over 30 years, 18 in Florida and 18 in Georgia. I'm very saddened to hear about the incident that took place. I have to piggyback on the security as well. Now, I have 2 grandchildren that's at Lorraine. I have one at the Magnet, which is in the 9th grade, and I also have another one that's at General Ray Davis. I don't know, those of you who do not have children within the school system, if you were aware of a hit list that was out And today, Rockdale County was supposed to have been targeted. Now, I'm very saddened because this is the first that I've heard about the incident coming here. I didn't hear it on the news. When I watched the bus, because I deliberately paid attention to make sure that the elementary, the middle school, and the high school bus passed my neighborhood, I fell on my knees and I said, thank God, nothing took place today. What kind of policy do we have to educate our parents of what's going on? I know we had to be aware of this hit list. The hit list was supposed to hit the schools within Rockdale County today. Now, I will say this, in dropping my grands off, the line was outrageous because of checking the book bags. Thank God, I'm not complaining about that. But if it wasn't for my grands, I wouldn't have known what was happening today. Would not have known. So what kind of, I don't know what to do about this situation. But how are we going to relate to the parents when there is a hit list out on our schools? I think parents need to be aware.
So I got a remind message yesterday about that. So it talked about that, but I also got a
But I'm
message.
the grandparent, so
I know, so I don't know.
Dear
Yeah.
receive it.
So I don't know, yeah.
Okay.
Custodial parent would receive information.
Yeah, so I got a remind message about that. But I also got a remind message today that nothing was happening at Edwards. Everyone go back.
That's a problem.
Yeah. And to hear what you all just said.
Dr. Oak should not be in a parking lot addressing parents.
Yeah.
With police and full gear. Well, hold on. Here, the situation should be, what does Rockdale have in place? What she's trying to articulate, what do we have, or do they have anything that can notify everyone immediately? Dr. Oak should not have to be out in the parking lot, and what this young lady's on her way, she's not listening to Dr. Oak. She doesn't know what's going on. These people don't know what's going on.
But we have to make sure that they're truthful. Like, they sent this out. So if they're gonna send something out as we wanted to say, it has to be the truth. Because this was not the truth.
Correct, but I'm talking about today, real time, what's going on. You have
Yeah,
people
they
that,
sent it.
no, I'm talking about like at Edwards, I'm talking about like at
They
Edwards.
sent it.
Exactly.
So-
This is what it said. It said, it's at 10:07. Good morning, RCPS families. Please note there is no active threat happening at any of our schools. Everyone
Oh,
is
yeah, I
safe.
saw.
A rumor is spreading that there is something active happening at a middle school. Right now, law enforcement is investigating a verbal threat made at Edwards Middle School, but there is no active threat happening. Please stop the rumor. Everyone is safe. Thank you for your assistance.
Now,
And I'm hearing what you all just said.
Edwards Middle School sent out a different
Let's just talk about this a second, right? Let's just think about this, right? So, just the comments that we've heard here today, just as the comments I've heard here today, you got people that are on the board sitting in here today, they're hearing you, right?
Good.
But that's a good thing.
Good thing.
It's a good thing because you're having a town hall listening meeting, and the people who need to hear what you're saying, they're hearing what you're saying. And trust me, I know those couple of people, they're gonna ask questions. They are gonna ask questions. They're gonna ask questions.
Can they introduce themselves?
No, they can, but I told you, the format for this is that they will not be involved in this format until after January, because I'm not officially on the board, and I would like a policy established so that everybody's protected. You know what I mean? That's my, and because you know, these are gonna be my future, board members, and I'm gonna have their back right now for a minute while I'm up here doing some stuff that might not make people happy. But, you know, these folks are hearing you today, right? And as a person that's going on the board, I definitely want to, when I hear these things, I'm definitely going to look at this policy. I'm going to see, can this policy be improved? Can this policy be enhanced so that you, the public, are made better aware, are given better information. And that's what these kind of meetings are about. Because by having this meeting today, trust me, we got these video cameras are running today. You people are here. This is going to be out there in the community. People are going to be aware of this. And that's what people don't want. Some people don't want this awareness. But I ran a campaign that if I won, you would be informed, you would be aware, I would be your voice. I intend to keep that promise. And I think this meeting tonight is giving the people that are present here the idea and the understanding you do have a voice and your concerns will be heard and they will be put out there. So rest assured, change will happen, but it can't happen overnight. It takes time, but it's going to take your input, it's going to take your concerns, and it's going to take you staying involved. And that's what I like hearing here today. I like the passion that I hear from you guys today because I know you care. I like the passion that is coming forth because you care about what's going on. You care about those students. You care about Rockdale County. You care about this school system. And that's what we need more of. We need more people who care. And I thank each and every one of you for bringing your voice here tonight. Yes, Corliss.
I just want to ask you parents, my name is Corliss Turner, and I'm the founder of Voices for Rockdale, and we go to the Board of Education meeting, and most of the time it's seniors, and I don't think they really hear us. We need help. We need you all to come out to the meetings, please. There is a meeting tomorrow, I believe it's at 6 o'clock. There's one at the BOC, but I'll be at the BOE. We need help. We need representation. When they see the citizens is showing up, even if you don't speak, that means the citizens are becoming aware. We're out there trying to, I don't have children in school, but I care about the children. So we're out there trying to fight for you all, but we need parents to start coming, seriously. Thank you.
Thank you, Corliss, and that is true. And that's something that I'm going to encourage. And that's why I'm going to have these meetings and have them regularly and continue to have them so that you get accustomed to having these types of meetings. Can I ask any of you in the room, have you ever been to a Board of Education town hall in Rockdale County? You have?
Yes.
One. Yes. One. Who had the meeting? Look, have you been to a Board of Education meeting?
Yes.
Okay. Have you ever attended a Board of Education member having a town hall? So have any of you ever had a town hall meeting with Board of Education members? No. And I tell you, it's because these board members were led to believe it was taboo, that you couldn't do it.
Did you hear what Dan just said?
What?
He wasn't aware there was such a thing.
No, because they're not aware there's such a thing.
It's
Because board members are led to believe during their training it's taboo, don't do that. It's not taboo. Have you guys enjoyed having an education town hall tonight?
Yes.
Do you want to have more education town halls?
Yes.
And it's what we're going to do. We're not going to let bureaucrats shut us down, are we?
Nope.
Because you voted for someone to represent you. This is representative government. And I intend to continue representing you. Not only I, trust me. There are other board members who will join this movement and will be attending town halls. There are other board members who know what's going on and they have your back. Trust me, you're getting ready to see a new day in Rockdale County in January 1. Any other comments? If not, go ahead.
Yes, I have one question. I have a son, who has high functional autism with an IEP. the other resources, it's a shortage on getting the requirements that he have in his IEP in the school. And so they're outsourcing to bring in, to meet the requirements that's in the IEP. Not only for my child, but for friends of my children that's in the school. So is there any, future, outlook on how they're gonna meet the requirements of IEP for special needs children in Rockdale County School?
That's, the special needs student thing is a real thing that touches my, I had a brother who was a special needs student.
Yes.
So it's something that's near and dear to me.
Yes.
And I have heard the same complaints from parents and educators
Yes.
about the inability to provide certain types of things that are supposed to be provided. I was aware of this, and when I become a board member, it's something I intended to look into and talk to my fellow board members about what we can do and how we can address it. But like I said, not a board member yet, but I am aware of that, right?
I'll be coming to your meetings.
And I do want you to, I mean, like I said,
Remember my crew, we gonna be
anybody who knows me knows.
I was at the first one, this
Yeah.
one church. That's my pastor.
Anybody who knows me knows
Okay.
that if I make a promise and a commitment to you, and I tell you I'm gonna look into something for you, I definitely look into it, and you're gonna get an answer.
Oh,
Now,
I'll
that's
be
it.
you every time.
Yes, Ms. Davis.
In reference to that, I have a friend who's a mom at Lorraine, she's also a therapist.
Yes.
She did some contract work with the company who was contracted to do speech therapy.
Yes.
She said a lot of speech therapists won't come here because Rockdale won't pay the rate, like they're going $50 to $60 an hour. So they didn't have, so that's why you have to go to a company who will then farm out this job, but she does it virtually. Rockdale refuses to pay what it takes to have an in-person therapist at the school, so then that's why they only do virtual therapy. And that's one reason my child, who has speech processing disorder, who's been in speech since she was months old, is not in pre-K in Rockdale. Because if she ever has to go back to speech, it will not be virtual.
And you've told me that, Ms. Davis, and I'm well aware of it. And that's why I've said, trust me, people have been in my ear about this,
Yes.
right? So it is something
So that
that,
deals with the budget. The
yes,
budget,
it
you
deals
know,
with the budget.
how we allocate this fund.
So it is something that I am aware of. And like I said, people have been in my ear about that.
Oh, yeah, that's
So-
what we mean.
But as a medical profession, you also have to realize there's a shortage, therapists and things like that, so that's not just Rockland County has those issues. That's a shortage, so that's why you have to meet some of those issues because of the shortage. That's why you have to be contract out, just like you go to Rockland Medicine, they might contract out half their nurses, because there's a shortage. So when it comes to medical, it's just a shortage, covers in a lot of things, and so it has really made things work. So it's not that it may not be the fact we won't pay for them, it's just there's a shortage.
Well,
And then when there's
she
a
said
shortage,
she would do it and she could get paid.
there's a high demand, and they know there's a shortage, that's just like I'm a nurse. When COVID hit, I had enough nurses, when they called me right out, I'll be there.
Yeah, I know that's right.
Well,
That's just the way it goes in medicine.
And then that's why when you ask these questions, right? That's why it's important that you find out the correct information, that you ask the question, the board does the research, and we're able to come back and give you an appropriate answer as to why these services weren't provided, right? Or how they're going to be provided. So, but you deserve an honest answer and not a runaround. And that's where I want to make sure happens. I want to give you an honest answer. Now, I'm gonna tell you, be honest with you, you might not like some of the answers I give you,
That's okay.
but it's gonna be an honest, transparent answer. And that's what you need. You need transparency. And that's what I believe that you're going to start getting from this board once the board transitions at the first of the year, I think you're going to really see a transparent board, a different mindset on the board. And I think it's something that you, the stakeholders and the parents of Rockdale County are going to become accustomed to and demand moving forward.
Amen.
And this board member, I done called plenty times, she will talk to
She
you.
will talk to you, yes. Okay, George, you have something else?
Regarding their concerns about what happened at Edwardsville School. Through the Georgia Bureau investigation, and this is a fact check,
You have Amber Alert, radio, TV, cell phone. Those alerts are justified through the Georgia Bureau of Investigation as a suggestion. Once we move forward, that is a system that could be utilized by the Department of Education in the state of Georgia. Okay? Something we can investigate. Also,
Yeah.
okay, show up, speak up. I'm going to the city council meeting this week, next week, Board of Commissioners, we've got some new folks coming on board. And again, you know, I'm 67 years old here, young, all right? We're going to recommend that Board of Education members go to city council meetings and go to Board of Commissioners meetings, and vice versa. I know that Miss Lett visits schools, she comes to the Board of Commissioners meetings, she goes to city council meetings. If you want tax relief in this county, number one, you gotta vote yes for Senate Bill 581 that's getting ready to come up on your ballot in November. And number two, you've got to go and voice your objection to these tax increases at the city council meetings, the Board of Commissioners meetings, and the Board of Education meetings. Because folks, what you have going on right now are three separate silos. I can right now go to a city board member or Board of Commissioners member, and they have a very small understanding of what the budgets are for the city or the county or the school system. So that'll be your key. Show up, speak up.
My correction is to be HR 1022 on the ballot, which would activate HR 581. Yes, say that again. On the ballot, it's gonna be HR 1022, which is changing, rewording the Constitution. Is it local Constitution?
State Constitution.
State Constitution, okay, so that they can enact the 581, which is not being able to raise your property value more than 3%. So the resolution will be on the ballot.
what copies of it I've got here.
So do we have any additional comments or questions? Well, then I want to thank, Al, you got something? Go ahead, Al.
I have a feeling that the newest board members were elected simply because this school system does not provide value for money anymore. Every year, the school comes to us with their hand out, the school board comes to us with their hand out, and they say, more please. What they don't tell us is what they're gonna give us for that money. They don't tell us what metrics they intend to improve. They don't tell us who's gonna be held responsible if those metrics aren't improved. There's no accountability with these people. They simply take and they provide nothing in return. We've elected these new board members with the expectation that something's going to change. So I'm going to ask you here and now, what is going to change? Who is going to be held accountable when this school system does not improve? We have a new superintendent. Now, he wasn't hired necessarily to improve the school system. He was hired because our last superintendent got boozy and crashed his county provided car. But one of my expectations
Let's-
for this superintendent
let's
is
clear-
that he improve
Let's
our
clear, but he's
schools.
not a new superintendent, he's been here 7 years.
Sure.
7 years, not new. That's nowhere near new, that's aged, like fine wine.
So I'd like for this board to adopt a policy that when they come to me every year for more and more money, that they tell me exactly what they intend to improve and who's gonna be held responsible if those metrics aren't met. And I'm not talking graduation rate. This county graduates ham sandwiches, for Christ's sake. We graduate kids that can't fill out a job application. You know that for a fact.
Hour and a half. on
So
the
I
dot.
want to know who's going to be held responsible when they do not improve this school system.
If you listen to the beginning of this meeting, one of the things I talked about was the evaluation of the superintendent and evaluating the system and evaluating the processes, the policies, the curriculum. And the only way to do that is for the board members to actively be involved and be able to observe. And the main reason for that was to be able to observe to assure that the superintendent and his staff were doing their jobs. And I think it's accountability, Alex. It's the people who are responsible for the day-to-day operation of this school system are responsible to make sure that these achievements are made. It is the responsibility of the school board to put these policies in place and to make sure they have the resources for that to happen. And if the day-to-day operation is not carried out in a fashion that the educational system is not improving, then the superintendent and his staff must be held accountable. Because those are the individuals who are stated they are the experts. They are the professionals. That they are the ones that are guiding this system. So if you're guiding something, then you're responsible for it. And you're not allowed to grade yourself, judge yourself, or give yourself a hall pass. It's the responsibility of the Board of Education to assure that these policies are being adhered to and that these achievements are being made. And Alex, not only that, let me tell you what I firmly believe, my personal belief. I believe that the superintendent's continued employment, and if there would be any bonus incentives, should not be tied just to being able to, minimal requirements, tie your shoe and show up to work on time. They should be tied to educational achievements of the students in Rockdale County. That's what they should be tied to. You should not get a bonus if you have 40% of your children not reading at level at certain grades. You should not get a bonus if you have 50% of your children not able to do simple mathematics. That's my opinion. And it's something, and I'll have a vote to vote those things and suggest those things. So, Alex, who should be held accountable? It would be the superintendent and his executive staff who run the day-to-day operation of the school system. That's who needs to be held accountable. And if the school board doesn't hold them accountable, if I don't hold them accountable, then you get to hold me accountable and send me packing in 4 years. And I would expect you to. Anybody else?
Real quick.
Go ahead.
What Mr. George said back there, he gave me the game. He said, go check in those storage rooms, look at the curriculum that's not being used, and teach it to the test. My son graduated in 2023, and he's right. These kids that are graduating are not ready. Just to be keeping it real. They'll teach to the test, so they can go ahead and get that, but that curriculum, what he says, that's in them, that they need to be teaching, is not being taught. He gave me the game.
I got you.
He gave
Go
me
ahead.
the
Yes,
game.
ma'am.
You
That's-
say you was getting ready to schedule your tours to the school. Are you going to tour transportation?
I actually asked to tour all facilities. I didn't limit it to schools. I said all facilities. So yes, ma'am, I will be. Hey, there's a little thing people don't know. You know what? One of the things that I manage in my business, I manage a fleet of vehicles. What do you think about that? I manage a fleet of vehicles. I manage a fleet of vehicles that work the southeast United States of America.
Are all of them AC?
All of them are AC too. Every one of them.
Brown without.
Every one of them are AC. Yeah. But I have some expertise in a lot of different things, and that's where I feel when you run for these type of offices, you need to have a skill set that gives you insight to a lot of different things. I do budgets. I bid jobs. I run multi-million-dollar jobs. I run a multi-million-dollar company. So I don't want to hear this stuff. You're not qualified to look at a budget. Probably one of the most qualified people in the county to look at a budget. So I don't want to hear it. So that's my take on it. So any other questions, any other comments? 'Cause I want to wrap this up, and I want to let you guys go home tonight.
Can I say one thing?
You can say one thing.
I don't think that Terry Oates, and correct me if I'm wrong, I have no children in the school system, I never had. I've been here 32 years. Terry Oates should not be qualifying the school rate with the public schools and RCA being the elite, gifted students. So it's balancing out to where he's saying, no, it's not a D rating, we're not at a C rating. We stopped doing that during COVID. Now we're at this level, and we're doing good because he's getting to cheat the numbers because of the advanced students with RCA.
Well, this is what I say, Cheryl, I'd say this, is I talk about transparency, right? And we can have transparency through setting policy. We can set policy as a school board that says, when we get our milestone reports, that we want them presented in a certain format. If they're not presented in that format, then the superintendent and his staff would be in violation of policy. And it would be up to the board to then say, this is the consequence for not presenting these results in this format. The board has to also stand up, and trust me, the board is going to stand up. You're going to have a different day. It's coming. Trust me, it's coming.
Good, because I'm paying
It's coming.
20.1.
It's coming. Any other comments or statements? Let me tell you what, guys. I appreciate you guys coming out here for this first town hall listening meetings. There are going to be many more of them. I'm going to have one in November. Then I'm going to start having them next year, one a quarter, and it will be the second month of each quarter. And I am going to ask other members of the board to join me in these town hall meetings. And I even think we probably need to establish a policy on what we're going to do and how we're going to do it, because so we won't be accused of being mean to people. So that's my thing, right? I believe in policies, I believe in rules. But I believe everybody has to adhere to the policy and rules, and don't be a crybaby because you don't like it. That's just my opinion. I want to thank you for coming out. I want to thank you for your support in electing me to this position, and I promise you, I won't let you down, and if you think I do, then kick me out. Thank you and good night.